So this is my Module 10 case study. Summarizing the case, at the school in which I'm principal, parents have disassociated from the National PTA organization and have begun work to undermine processes, plans, and policies which are already in place with the former parent organization. Additionally, concerns have been voiced by these parents regarding the transparency in the school and what is happening in classes. The group involved is newer to the school setting and has been making plans and decisions without the involvement of others from the school. Overall, the problem is these parents are seeking to be involved in the school, and it is my job to ensure they can be involved and continue to work within the parameters we, as a school, have to follow. Some of the parameters are staff hours, existing district and state policy, and overall levels of community engagement allowed. Some legal and ethical issues. So we have teacher contracts involving hours and the number of nights in which they are required to work. State and school board policy around parents in classes and in school during school hours. Parents knowing educational information regarding other students, so students of their own. Inequity of teacher class numbers and students being used to host more events. Looking at that from a standpoint of a special teacher or an elective teacher having multiple classes where they have to be there for multiple evenings. Parents who are hyper-focused on their own students and the population in which their students belong may ignore students in other demographic groups. So if they are in a high socioeconomic status or, fall into one of the racial or demographic groups, they will typically ignore other groups. And then also just the recognition of the locus of control, delineating what the parents, school, principal, and other stakeholders can control. Kind of the overall thing as I view it, overall the parents' behavior is communication. They are trying to communicate with me. They are seeking involvement in the school and do not feel the current processes and policies support the educational goals they have for their student. So just some things involved. Principal, that's me. Parents, so parents of students. The president of the parent organization appears to be a male, recent attorney, is what it looks like. Students, other stakeholders, those could be other parents, the community at large. This appears to be a 912 high school that we're looking at in a suburban area is where I'm placing it because that's where I currently work. So that's kind of where I'm looking. Programs involved, two programs that I could identify were back to school night and then the parent-teacher conferences. Places involved would be the use of the school and its building, classrooms, all that kind of space, and then policies. So I see curriculum and the sharing of curriculum, parent involvement, creation of policy, as well as school assessments as well. Some assumptions. I think there's a lot of assumptions that were being made. So me as a principal, I assumed that the PTA had been a positive force in the school. So that was one assumption that I made as a principal. Another assumption I made was that parents were happy with the goings on in the school. So two assumptions that may or may not prove to be false or true in my case. The parent group assumptions, the back to school night left parents confused. So that's an assumption that they made. Parent group assumptions, parents would attend multiple evenings for back to school night. So assuming that other parents would want to come up for multiple nights to talk to teachers. Another parent assumption is curriculum is not shared with parents. Parent assumptions as well, policies can be changed by parents. And then parent assumptions that they have a reliable tool to assess and observe the classroom. So speaking to their idea of going into classrooms. Ultimately, I see three options. And in the end, there's no black and white total solution to all of this. And we'll kind of explore each of these individually, settling on the final one of finding places to compromise and acknowledging the systems currently in place. So the options I have as a principal is change nothing. Just say no to the status quo. Option 2 would be giving into all demands, so just kind of saying yes. And then the third place would be finding places to compromise, acknowledging the systems that are currently in place. So in weighing out these options, so change nothing. If I change nothing as a principal, everything will keep running as prescribed. It's super easy. Change is scary, especially when it comes to students and staff. The staff will know that I support what is happening in classes. It's super easy to say no. Some cons to that is that I could potentially alienate a group of parents who want to be involved. Those parents could choose to withdraw their students based on, what they see in the school. And then I'll also have to find other parents who want to be involved. And there's a potential for no changes could occur to the school in general. Like no positive changes could come of it, which is definitely a con. If I give in to all the requests, I think from one aspect it absolves me of the outcomes. You know, I can wash my hands and say these are what you wanted to have happen, so all the outcomes are yours to own. School may improve for students and staff. There could be some marked improvements. I don't know that. Staff might get more buy-in for specialized programs. So based on their idea to have teachers host nights, more individual nights for parents, that staff may be able to see their program grow, which is a good thing. I think cons, I think staff will feel unsupported. I think other groups will feel alienated. So those other demographics not involved in this parent group. So whether it's low SES, minorities, students who are identified as having special needs, things like that, that those students will feel alienated. Students may leave based on these parents' involvements. So that could happen as well. And then lessen the perception of me as a leader. I think that my perception as the principal and overall instructional leader will be tarnished if I just give in to all the requests. Finally, option 3, work within the parameters we have. I think this is the option that is going to be the best for all of us, and really just kind of sitting down with the parents and hammering out what we can and can't do. So I think first thing would be outlining policies in which we, the school, have control. So that could be, from what back to school night looks like, what these, school night exploration classes look like. And then if there's policies that are still being brought up that are beyond kind of that scope, I think sharing with parents, like how do you get involved in making changes to larger policies, running for school board, could be an option, or going to the school board or board meetings. In a district that's as large as mine, when you have 5 high schools and 1 to 2 middle schools per school and all of that, it gets huge. I think as a leader, I need to survey the staff, parents, and students to learn more about the concerns. Clearly, these parents have concerns. So what are the specific concerns from all parents, and how do we distill that down to a couple things that we can tackle? And then using that survey to create a common goal. So one example would be working toward becoming a National School of Character. That's a certification program that you can work toward. It has specific parameters and specific things that you'd be working on as a school, versus just kind of spitballing and trying to work through something that you may or may not have a lot of experience with. I do think creating groups with the PTA to address concerns, but these concerns or these groups should also include staff, parents, and students. So that way you can get a much more well-rounded voice and a much better consensus. Also will increase the buy-in in whatever changes are being made. But then I think finally, as a principal, I will have to establish a timeline for the committees to work and when the work should be completed, because all of this is dependent on a school calendar, which, we have to work within the district calendar. There are prescribed days that are already agreed to in a negotiated agreement for the time off. There are all of these things that the parents may not realize that as a principal, I have little to no control over when it comes to things. But, I would like to address things that I do have control over. And then finally, I think what happens if none of it works, if it all goes south? I think I would challenge the parents to identify local or national programs in which we can be recognized. I think this is a great approach because typically these programs give parameters for success and offer recognition. And typically these programs include making improvements for all students. So, if we're looking for International Baccalaureate certification, or like I said, the National School of Character certification, or a STEM certification, PBL, problem-based learning certification. So these certifications are typically something that would involve many more stakeholders, but would allow the parents to be involved, and at the same time offer them something, a framework in which they can work, versus the current plan that is had of just kind of going in and looking at things and assessing things and just poking things just to poke. Like, let's give ourselves some direction. So that would be my challenge if it all goes south. Like, what is important to you? And let's find something that already has a framework that exists that we can use and run with, because I think that those programs offer some great frameworks that we can use. And that is the end of my presentation for Module 10.